Hi, everybody. I'm Jack Jinseki, and joining me today is Cove.
Hello, hello. I'm Cove, aka Hypertoxin, he, him pronouns. It's lovely to see you all. I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here.
So, Cove, what kind of content do you like to make?
So, I am definitely a variety streamer. One of the very first things I did start streaming, and I do stream the most frequently, is Dead by Daylight. I used to play with a huge group of friends. That number's dwindled now because everybody has their own lives, but I still play with like a good chunk of people. I'm seen most often with It Ramona. We play Dead by Daylight together a lot, but I've played anything from Red Dead to Slime Rancher. I have art streams on occasion because I am an artist,
hmm
and I just anything just about if somebody recommends something to me, I'll play it.
Nice. So, what made you want to be a VTuber?
Okay, so this is actually a nice little fun story. So I've gone to conventions for quite a few years now.
hmm
I'm a big fan of cosplay, have been for a very long time. Well, I always knew, like, I knew I wanted to stream. I just didn't really have the equipment for it. The PC that I did have, it wasn't great, and I mean, I didn't get it till I was like probably like 20. And but I knew I wanted to stream. But the PC that I had, it worked great for playing games and doing things I wanted to do, but it couldn't really handle streaming.
hmm
And so my partner ended up building me this PC as a gift. So this is the one that I use now. But so I always knew I wanted to get into streaming, but when I finally decided to be a VTuber and finally get the ball rolling, when I went to a convention, there were two VTubers by the name of Mello and Hani. They have both since graduated. Hani just graduated a couple days ago, but they held a VTuber panel, and I went to the panel and they answered a bunch of questions. They were both super sweet. It was really awesome to see, and that's when I was like, you know what? I want to be a VTuber.
So, you talk about going to anime conventions. If you could go to an anime convention tomorrow, whom would you cosplay as? And there's no limitations on this, so it could be anyone.
Okay, so with no limitations, I would definitely. Oh, that's actually a really good question. I was thinking about this, but I don't even think I could. I was able to come up with like a solid answer. One of the cosplays I've always wanted to do was Kangel from the game Needy Streamer Girl Overload.
hmm
Big fan of the character, really big fan of the game, and I think if I had to go aside from that, I would say Stein
hmm
from Soul Eater.
Oh yeah, he was probably my favorite character from that show.
Oh, he was definitely my favorite. He's been one of my comfort characters for the longest time. And in a way, he actually kind of indirectly, you can't really tell looking at my character, but if you were there for like the design and all the mental thoughts I had for my character, he was one of the inspirations.
So, what was the process for creating your character?
So, Cove, which is what I go by, but that is the name of this character, has actually been around for, I want to say, almost 3 years now. So, I was a big creepypasta kid growing up.
hmm
Absolutely loved that whole, thing. And every few years, I go through like a big kick with like Marble Hornets and creepypasta. It kind of the hyperfixation comes back around to bite me in the ass. So Cove was created during one of those like roundabout phases. This was back when I lived with a roommate, and they kind of worked together with me. Like I bounced my ideas for Cove. I knew I wanted to create a scene character because out of all the OCs I've created, I've never really had one that was just like truly like scene core. And I can't quite remember how the original concepts for Cove came around, but I had like a whole Pinterest board. I was bouncing ideas off of my roommate and came up with Cove, who was supposed to be a Marvel Hornets universe character.
Mm-hmm.
Cove has gone through like some like smaller changes and is actually about to go through another change. I'm working on adding more details that fit more with his storyline, which of course has also been tweaked for streaming. But for the most part, his design's gonna stay mostly the same. But like I said, he was originally created to be a Marvel Hornets universe character.
I'm
So
Marvel Hornets universe. I'm actually not familiar with that part.
okay, so Marvel Hornets. Oh god, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible because I'm currently in my Marvel Hornets hyperfixation again. I was actually watching it before time for this interview. That's what I was doing when you reached out. So Marvel Hornets is a like found footage type like YouTube series. Like I'm sure maybe you've seen like horror movies that are like the found footage kind of stuff,
Oh
like
yeah.
like tapes, recordings, things like that. It
Yes.
was a show that started releasing on YouTube 15 years ago. And it concerns a bunch of people involved with the operator, aka Slenderman.
Mm-hmm.
So the operator exists as a separate entity in this universe, but it takes on the appearance of Slender Man. It's got the terms like slender sickness, things like that. Essentially, they end up being manipulated and like being made to get sick by the operator, who's puppeteering a lot of them. They have like gaps of memory, they cough up blood, things like that. So it's essentially them trying to survive against each other as well as the operator.
Hmm.
Just as like a as brief as I can keep it. It's got some complex storyline and lore points, but
God,
it's definitely worth the time to sit down if you enjoy that kind of stuff.
Slender Man 15 years ago. I think that's pretty much when he first came to be, more or less.
Yeah, it was definitely when I would say it was probably when he started getting popular. It was probably due to Marble Hornets for a lot of it.
I thought you
Um,
said Marvel Hornets. I thought it was like
yeah, no,
a
no,
comic book offshoot. I was like, huh, I've never heard of that one.
no. Sorry, it's probably the accent a little bit.
No, no, no. So, what's your favorite accomplishment of your channel so far?
So I would say the biggest accomplishment for my channel for me so far has just been the community. I've met a lot of like other like awesome streamers and people through my streams. I mean, some of them have come from like Dead by Daylight. I keep my channel name as my display name, so I get a lot of really cool people through there. A lot of them are their fellow streamers. I actually met Rhyme through Twitch. Rhymes, I like to say, is a pretty good friend. I've met some super awesome people through streaming, and I in my chats now, I constantly have people I really get along with who love to engage, and I would say that the community was one of the biggest reasons that I started streaming. I did it for fun. I wanted to meet people and I wanted to build those connections. And I'm starting to get like a really solid community now, which is awesome.
That's really cool. That is one thing I've noticed about Rhyme and I don't know if you know Lampy, but there's big group community, and that's where I've gotten most of my interviews from so far. Is just this one extended friend group alone, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, Rhyme has been I honestly I can't quite remember who was in whose stream first. I do remember I was in Rhyme's stream at one point and I can't remember if that was the stream we met or if they'd met while I was streaming. I can't 100% remember. But yeah, Rhyme is I mean, there's very few times that I'm streaming and Rhyme hasn't popped in. And it's awesome because I feel like the longer, like for example, like I mean, of course with a lot of people, but like Rhyme especially is like the more I stream, Rhyme sticks around for longer. And like this recent stream, Rhyme was super active in chat, which I love to see. And we had a lot of really fun conversations. And of course, that was when Rhyme brought up that like you were doing interviews and asked if I'd be interested. And now we're yapping on Discord and stuff like that. So it's awesome.
Nice. So, what are your goals for your channel?
So, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest reasons that I do this, is to have like a group and like a little like tight knit community. I love meeting people. I would say ultimately my goals are to just keep building that community. I
Hmm.
mean, even if it only stays, me and a couple close people, I love meeting new people. It's like, which is funny because like I was saying before, I have really bad social anxiety, but when it comes to being online, it's like the world is my oyster. Like I tend to be like super sociable and things like that, and then in real life I just stare at people when they try to talk to me. But I like being online, and I think the I cannot say that word. I think being anonymous helps a lot. A lot of like my social anxiety, I think, comes from the fact that I don't like being perceived, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like when I go out in public, I wear a face mask to like limit my visibility and things like that. I have a like really weird thing with people looking at me and perceiving me, but when I'm online, I'm hidden behind a screen. I don't have to worry about those perceptions. I can talk to people without feeling uncomfortable, like their eyes on me and things like that?
Yes.
So it's like I just want to keep meeting people. I plan on continuing to stream for as long as life allows. I want to meet new people. I want to make new friends. I want to keep growing my community.
Nice. So, who's your favorite VTuber and why?
So, my favorite VTuber for a hot while, and of course, like I still absolutely like love his work. He has been graduated for quite a bit now,
Hmm.
which he moved on to better things. But it was actually Mello. He was one of the VTubers I mentioned earlier,
Yep.
because Mello, I mean, Mello and Honey were my like first introductions to VTubing. And so I used to go in Mello's streams a lot. And I mean, he was super sweet. He had a rabbit theme, which one fun fact about me, I'm obsessed with rabbits. So obsessed. But if I had to choose somebody that was still currently doing VTubing, I would say my partner. Which I may be a little biased, but my partner does VTubing as well. We actually met through a mutual friend who's also a VTuber. So,
Everybody knows VTubers in real life, and it's crazy. The network is enormous.
oh, absolutely, yeah. Because the thing was, fun fact is, so the person I met my partner through, I met them through my roommate who was also a VTuber. I mean, is still a VTuber, but we're not roommates anymore. They
Yeah.
live in a different state now. But yeah, my roommate was a VTuber, and I met the other VTuber who I then met my boyfriend through. And at the time, he streamed with like his face and stuff like that, but ended up becoming a VTuber as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, your ideal stream, who are you inviting?
Okay, so I will say my ideal stream, I've had a lot of already, and I know that it's supposed to be like there's like no limitations, like you could have anyone. But honestly, my friends are where it's at. So my friend Choco, my partner Zeno, Sparky, Leo, and Sunico, we have great streams whenever we're all together. We don't get to stream with Sunico too often because of time zone differences. But my ideal stream is when we're all together. I mean, it's pure chaos. It's really fun. It's just it nonstop enjoyment.
Hey, chaos is the best kind of fun.
Exactly. Like I feel like each of us are chaotic in our own way, and then you take, all these beings filled with chaos on their own and you shove them all together in a Discord call. Insane.
What advice would you give to somebody who wants to be an entertainer?
Patience. Patience is the key. If you have any sort of like goals in mind in terms of growing, like follower count or even like chatters at the same time and things like that, patience is going to be one of those things that you have to look out for me. The numbers don't really matter because I'm just doing this for fun.
Hmm.
But that's another thing too, is you want to make sure you're making enjoyment out of it. Like you shouldn't just be streaming because you care about the numbers or you want to get famous. You have to enjoy what you do. And one of the biggest things is being yourself. And it becomes harder than you realize it is. It gets easier the more you get adjusted to it, which is where patience comes in too. It's going to take you some time to feel around and get used to everything. One of my last stream actually went really well and had like high chat interactions was because I the stream was me drawing and just like yapping about things that I usually hold myself back from, because I tell myself in my streams, like for example, one of the things was I was talking about my last stream was marble hornets, and I was like, nobody wants to listen to me talk about this unrelated subject for 45 minutes. I lied. Chat ate it up. So that's one of the biggest things is like if you feel like you're holding yourself back from being yourself, don't. You might be surprised with what you find. Like I said, my chats can sometimes be really quiet. I've only got like maybe one or two frequent chatters, but I notice when I let loose and I let myself like talk more and talk about things I'm passionate about, even if they're not related to what I'm doing, um, people, I mean, they eat it up. They want to listen to you talk about the things you're passionate about. They want to listen to things that you enjoy. I mean, just let loose, be yourself.
From personal experience, I happen to know that chat is most excited by if someone goes on an unhinged rant on something that's
I
totally
literally,
irrelevant.
yeah, that was like I said, the last stream was the most that like Rhyme has been consistently chatting, and I mean, I was hyped because I was like, Rhyme was like, yeah, I've got stream playing, like I'm just listening to you talk, I'm really enjoying it, and I was like, that's like super awesome to hear. And I was telling Rhyme later after stream, I was like, I usually stop myself from doing these rambles because I'm like, who wants to listen to them? Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of people want to listen to them. A lot of people put streams on just to listen to them ramble. So, I mean, if you're rambling about something you're passionate about and super interested in, it's interesting to listen to.
Mm. What was the first anime you ever watched, and what drew you to it?
So, realistically, the first anime I probably ever watched was Pokemon. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I grew up on Pokemon, but probably the first anime I watched with the understanding that I was watching anime would be Death Note.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always Death Note is what like grew my attraction to. I mean, I've always been into a lot of like darker stuff, horror movies, thrillers, things like that. So I really enjoyed Death Note, and that's what had initially drawn me towards it. And I know ultimately the general consensus on Death Note is like it's okay, but like it's not great. And I know the manga's better. The manga's usually always better.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the anime, and it still holds a very special place in my heart. It's very nostalgic. It's what brought me to a lot of other, like, it was my intro to a lot of other animes, like Parasite, Deadman Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
It is still Death Note is still one of my favorite animes to this day because of yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me. And I actually have a tattoo on my left wrist, a Death Note tattoo. It's Kira's K, and it's got I Am Justice underneath it. It was my very first tattoo when I turned 18 years old.
Nice. It's funny you draw the distinction between the first anime you've ever watched and the first anime you watched with the knowledge of it being anime, because it is true. If I was going on the basis of the first one I'd ever seen ever, it would probably just be Pokemon.
Exactly. For me, it was probably either like Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z. I used to get up super early in the morning and watch Cartoon Network, and like that's what was on at 6 a.m. was like Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But it's like I was never really aware that I was watching anime. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
until a little later in life that I was like watching anime with the knowledge that I was watching it. I feel like the distinction is important, especially with something like Pokemon that's like such a big franchise. I mean, almost everybody grew up watching it.
Yeah.
Even people who don't watch anime now grew up watching Pokemon.
Yeah. It's like when your parents tell you, "Oh, I watched Astro Boy." Well,
Oh god, I loved Astro Boy growing up.
but it's not what I think of when I think of like modern. I think of modern anime when I think anime. I don't think
Exactly.
like,
Like when I think anime, I think of being fully aware I was watching anime. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Which
exactly.
5, 6 years old, I was not thinking. I didn't even know what anime was at 5 or 6 years old. I knew Pokemon was cool, Astro Boy was cool. That was pretty much it.
So, if you could live in any anime, which would it be?
Oh, that is such a good question. Because there's two ways to look at it. Which anime do I think would be cooler to live in, and which anime would I not die in the first episode in? um, hmm. God, that is a really good question. Honestly, if I had to choose, I would say Dead Man Wonderland. Would I survive very long? Not at all. But I think it's really fucking cool. I feel like I'd be like a background character that dies in the first 5 minutes, but that doesn't change the fact that it's badass.
uh, On to video games. What do you look for in a video game?
So one of the biggest things to me is character customization and like the ability to express yourself that way. And of course, it's not a requirement for a game or anything like that, but I'm most likely going to be drawn to the game if it's got some really good character customization. I'm always big about, expressing myself. I like to be creative. So when it comes to things like, I mean, even Skyrim with its like limited character customization, like I really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim, Elden Ring. What are some other good examples? Um, my brain is drawing a little bit of a blank. Why do I have so many windows open? Anyway, Monster Hunter. I mean, things like that. I enjoy being able to express myself through the character that I play. And of course, like I said, it's not a requirement. I mean, I play things like, Dead by Daylight, Slime Rancher, things like that. So it's like that don't really have character customization. But I enjoy it.
Nice. I think that one of the worst character creators I can think of, the one that's like a fully developed one but just doesn't look good at all, is probably it's one of my favorite games is Fallout New Vegas because the default character they show you the screen and the first thing you see the guy looks like a 40-year-old man. And all I can think is, what, this guy is going to be running through the wasteland? He ain't running anywhere.
Yeah, he ain't running anywhere. If anything, if he's running from anything, you better also run, because...
So, what video games are you looking forward to?
So one of the... I can't think of any games coming out that I'm aware of that I'm looking forward to, as far as new games. But as far as games that I intend on starting, so, B-Dog Girl, another, VTuber,
Mm-hmm.
whenever I'm popping into her stream, she's almost always playing The Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've, watched her play The Hunt several times. And I was, every time I'm like, man, this game is so cool. Man, this game is so cool. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to play. Yeah, and like V-Dog had encouraged it one of the last times I was in her stream. She was like, I was like, this game looks really cool. I've been watching you play it for, a little while and it looks like something I'd really enjoy. And she was like, you should get it. And I'm like, you're right, I should. I had mostly held off because I couldn't really think of anybody to play it with. I mean, of course, there's like V Dog. I'm sure she would be down if we could like organize the time and stuff. Um, but I know having to work around other people's schedules is super difficult. When it comes to like big like multiplayer games like that, I don't usually like to play by myself. I mean, like don't get me wrong, I'll play by myself for some of them. Like Dead by Daylight, I play by myself to get some practice in Killer. But I enjoy games like that when I get to play with my friends. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. Like it feels like I enjoy them better. Because if I had started Dead by Daylight playing by myself and only ever played by myself, I would have quit this game ages ago.
Oh, definitely. There are
Yeah,
lots of games like that.
oh, absolutely. Like I would have stopped playing ages ago, but because I get to play with my friends and I get to listen to them scream like little bitches, and it is not just them screaming like little bitches. I have shrieked on on stream before, usually getting jump scared, but I mean, it's like multiplayer games are just more fun when you have people to play with. And I mean, strangers are okay, but it's definitely a lot more fun playing with your friends.
Oh, absolutely. Uh, so now this is the section that I refer to as the non sequitur questions. The questions are a little bit more random, uh, just kind of general. Like I think of them as like personality questions, that kind of thing.
I can fuck with it.
Which do you prefer, Elvis or the Beatles?
So definitely the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Big Beatles kid growing up. Fun fact, I when I was younger, I didn't like Elvis, but the reason I didn't like him was like weirdly shallow, but also I was like 7, so I'm cutting myself some slack. I did not like Elvis because I thought his hair was dumb and his voice sounded weird. And don't get me wrong, like now, like I can listen to Elvis and I can appreciate his music. There's like 1 or 2 songs I really enjoy, but I
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a Beatles kid for sure.
Mm. The reason I like Elvis's voice because you can impersonate it and everybody instantly knows who you're impersonating.
Exactly, like it could be a bad impersonation and they'll still know. Like
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't have
yes,
to do a good job. You just have to get it recognizable, and that's easy.
exactly. Like you can do the most horrible Elvis impression and as long as you even just have like the enunciation right, everyone's not gonna know what you're what you're doing. He's just got it's just one of his staples, you know.
Oh yeah. You're on a boat with friends. What artist are you listening to?
So my first thought actually when I reviewed this question was I wouldn't be on a boat with friends. I'm scared of open water. So
You're on a boat in a kiddie pool.
yeah.
What artist are you listening to?
So I know that was what I was like. I was like, well, you know what? We're talking theoretics here. So I ended up thinking it could go 2 different ways, I guess, depending on the vibe. So if I was on a boat with friends and we were like drinking and partying, I'd be listening to mostly like a lot of hyperpop, Aisha erotica,
Mhm.
things like that. If we were just like riding around on a boat, I'd be playing sea shanties. Cause like, what
Oh.
am I gonna do? I'm not a sailor. How else am I gonna listen to sea shanties? Like, why else would I listen to sea shanties aside from just walking around my house or something? But I was like, that's like the perfect opportunity. I get to force everybody to listen to my 6 hour sea shanty playlist.
You turn on the music, it's got the hurdy-gurdy going in the background. What do you
Exactly.
do with a drunken sailor? Uh, oh. Uh, what's a good movie to watch on a Sunday afternoon?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me this. This is gonna turn into like another little wild ramble. My favorite movie ever to ever exist, is The Crow, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about now. I have to specify because of
The
what just came
original.
out.
Yeah.
The original, not the remake. I haven't watched the remake, so I feel like it wouldn't be fair for me to shit on it. I do plan on watching the remake, simply so I can shit on it. But you know what? If it does end up, I'm gonna not to I'm gonna try not to go into theaters with the idea of I'm gonna hate this movie. And I think it's just because it's one of those things that like The Crow holds a really special place in my heart. I my name actually not Cove, but IRL Draven comes from Eric Draven from The Crow.
Mm.
Um, and it's just the movie holds a special place in my heart. There was actually a period on stream for about 45 minutes where I ranted about everything, just looking off the screenshots I had seen from the movie wrong with the remake. And I try not to hold it against them. I think it's because The Crow holds such a special place in my heart, like the older movie, that my first instinct is to immediately be like, no, what is wrong with this remake? Like
Yeah.
this is horrific. Honestly, I think what bothered me the most about the new Crow was character design.
Mm.
I've tried to keep my knowledge on the new Crow very limited, but I remember when I saw what the current Eric Draven's supposed to look like in the remake, I was like, why does he look like Joker from Suicide Squad?
I, I remember when they announced the remake for The Crow, and all I could think was, okay, you have basically lightning in a bottle. You have a movie that people very heavily identify with. You have a lead character who has been forever immortalized because he died shortly after making this movie. Why do you, of all the movies to remake, why would you go for this
See,
one?
so my thought with and I said this on stream because I was streaming with It Ramona. I think we were playing Dead by Daylight, and we ended up talking about it because I was actually so It Ramona and I are IRL friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know they made a remake of The Crow until we had gone to see Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters together.
Mm.
And we were waiting to go see the movie, and I saw the poster for The Crow. And I was like, oh, I was like, The Crow. I was like, for a second there, I thought it was, the movie The Crow that, we know. And
Yeah.
they looked at me and they were like, it is. They made a remake. And I was like, they did what? Well, that was my limited thought. And then I looked a little bit more into it. Like I said, not trying to do too much because I
Yeah.
really am trying to go into the theater with the prospect of let me try to enjoy this movie. But my theory is, and of course, like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't guarantee. My thoughts were that, first of all, The Crow was made for a very specific group of people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Especially because the year it came out in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it was for the alternatives, the goths, like that culture, Um, that's what it was most well known by, and that's, the group it was made for, really. So when I saw that they were doing a remake, I was like, why The Crow of all things? You know what I mean? And my theory is, at least as far as how I think this movie is going to go when I see it, it's going to be the remake of The Crow, but meant to fit a wider audience.
Mm.
Instead of being for such a specific group of people, my theory is, things are going to be changed and tweaked or, just meant to fit that wider audience.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the character redesign is part of the reason they're trying to modernize it a little bit. And they're trying to, make it stand out to, the current generation, as opposed to what the movie was originally, the group it was made for.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that you're right. Uh,
That is, like I said, I'll have to wait till I see the movie in theaters to guarantee. We were actually going to see it as our next movie because It Ramona and I go to the movies a lot.
mhm.
But then Terrifier 3 came out, so that's the next goal.
Speaking of theaters, have you ever left the theater in the middle of a movie?
No. So that's one of the biggest things for me. First of all, with the price of movie tickets now,
Yeah.
I don't give a damn if the movie sucks ass. I'm gonna sit through the whole thing. You
Mhm.
pay $20 for a movie ticket now. But one of the things I used to do, and I wouldn't by any means call myself a movie critic,
Mhm.
but this little habit built because I used to work at a movie theater. So I worked at a movie theater for, I want to say, 7 or 8 months. And one of the perks we got was we got 9 free movie tickets a month.
Mhm.
Well, I was one person living in a college town. I only brought my family to my town once to see a movie, and that was when the Five Nights at Freddy's movie came out.
Ugh.
So like 9 tickets a month. So what I was like, what the hell am I gonna do with those? You know what I mean? As far as like movies that I actually want to see, so what we used to do, a bunch of my coworkers and I would meet up either on a day where we were off work or when we got off of work, and we would choose a movie in the theater that we hadn't seen yet, and we'd all watch it together. And then at the end of the movie, we would all go out into the lobby and spend like 30 minutes to an hour discussing the movie.
Hmm.
For the most part, there's usually like likable things I could find about most movies. I will say the only movie that honestly was even slightly tempting to walk out on was the newer Exorcist movie.
Hmm.
It was so bad. It, and I mean, I say newer. I'm pretty sure, like at this point, it's irrelevant because a it sucked, and b it came out like last year,
Yeah.
but right around this time, and I remember going to see it in theater, and I'm pretty sure I disassociated like halfway through the movie. Like I was not into it. I think the funniest thing or the like best thing that happened during that movie wasn't even from the movie itself. It was from somebody who was sitting behind me. there was like some weird like jump scare scene or something like that, and I was like completely unfazed. I'm at this point like I'm falling asleep in my seat. This movie was incredibly boring.
Hmm.
And suddenly the lady behind me, she's like a middle-aged woman. Suddenly yells, "Oh hell no!" Just like just like in the middle of this quiet ass movie theater, you know, with the movie going. And I literally, I'm not even joking, the entire movie theater busts out laughing. It took like a good 2 minutes for everyone to quit because it was just the timing, and like you don't expect somebody to yell in the middle of a theater like that. And it was just, oh my god, it was hilarious.
Oh
She
man.
actually ended up leaving part of the way through the movie. She was like, I can't keep watching this. She was terrified. Poor woman was terrified, but it was hilarious. I think about it a lot.
Oh man, it's funny because I actually used to work at a movie theater too. So a lot of what you're saying rings true. I didn't get like 9 free tickets a month. I could see any movie I wanted basically at any time, but it was just me. It's not like I could bring a friend or anything.
Hmm.
Uh, so there was that, and there was free popcorn, which was also pretty nice. Uh, I learned to loathe the smell of popcorn.
Oh God, literally. I'm glad you understand that because so I worked concessions, like that
Yep.
was what I did working in a movie theater, and I anytime I smell popcorn now, I get physically ill. Like I can't really, like I have to force myself to eat popcorn, and even then I can barely touch it now. I can't stand the smell. And I remember like because of my work shirt,
Hmm.
all of my clothes for the longest time, even though it wasn't my work shirt, smelled like popcorn. Like they just smelled like butter and oil, and it was so bad. It took me ages to get the smell out of my wardrobe, and I had to throw away my Regal t-shirt in
Yeah.
order to like cleanse my wardrobe. And still it took like several like times wearing and washing before it finally like I no longer smell butter and oil when I walk into my closet.
Yeah, and the thing is that people are like, "Oh, fresh popcorn." And I'm like, "It's not fresh."
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
what you're
I feel
what
like
you
it's held under warmers. We've had this popped for like 4 hours, bro.
and
Like,
then eventually it makes its way to the trash, and by then it starts getting a whole different kind of smell. It's like this weird, almost peppery kind of smell, and I can't even
yeah.
describe it very
Oh,
well.
I know. I literally know exactly what you're talking about. We've got some movie theater employee solidarity here.
Yeah.
Is it's literally, and especially because I have a hard time eating movie theater popcorn now that I know how everything works and how everything's made. Um, like first of all, I see the shit we clean that popper with. I see what gets in the crevices of this popper that most employees ignore. Like and I mean, luckily for the theater I worked at, so there were three Regal locations that
Mhm.
were in this town. I worked at the biggest and the fanciest one.
Mm.
So we were usually the most busy. So I will say at least our popcorn very rarely ever sat out that long unless you went and like early morning on a fucking like weekday. And I say
Mm.
early morning, I think we opened at like 12. So if you went like 12 on a weekday, and you went like a couple hours after that, like yeah, definitely that popcorn's been sitting there fermenting for a little while. But
Yeah.
is definitely I so now it's like anytime I go to a movie theater, it psychs me out. First of all, the smell makes me want to gag. And then like as long as I get away from it, I've gotten to the point I can slowly like start eating a little bit of it now, as long as I don't think about the fact of like how that popper is cleaned. And
Your friends just dropped in to play video games. What are you playing?
so we are most definitely, if it's with my main group that are also VTubers, we are more than likely playing either Lethal Company or Content Warning.
Hmm.
They're the games we play together the most, and that's because they're fun, they're silly. You get a little bit of scariness while also getting some silliness. Those are definitely the ones we play together the most, and usually when we all get together and stream, we're playing one of those.
Okay. Uh, Chess or poker?
Chess. I'm a big chess fan. So I used to. It was my dad who originally taught me how to play, and I used to play with him a lot. He had this really pretty like glass chess set,
Hmm.
and that he must have taught me when I was like 11 or 12 years old. Well, I'd kind of forgotten how to play, and then a close friend of mine in high school ended up teaching me how to play again, and because we had a study hall period together in the library, so every time we were in the library, we'd just sit there, we'd yap about whatever while playing chess, and I actually got really good at it.
Nice.
So I'm a big fan of chess.
Nice. Home cooked meal or restaurant?
Home cooked meal for sure. I like to think so. Another like fun, interesting fact about my dad: he's a cook, has been like his entire life, workforce wise. He taught me how to cook at a really young age, and I really enjoy it now. I can't bake worth for shit. Anything I try to bake should be immediately thrown into a hazard bin. It is completely inedible. I don't know what happens. I can take a mix, like a brownie mix, like that. All you have to do is add like an egg and water and throw it in the oven, and I will fuck it up. Like they're inedible. Like when I make cakes, it's not usually too bad. I will say I think I've nailed the science of pre-packaged cake mix pretty well. But anything else, absolutely not. They're completely inedible. I'm pretty sure I gave my brother food poisoning with the last batch of brownies I made. I I have no idea what I did. Like they were hard as a rock. They were barely edible, and my brother in his iron stomach decided to eat them anyway and got sick. Whether or not it was from the brownies is still up for debate. I like to think it was, but I can cook really well. I like to think I can cook really well.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't, of course, not just my opinion, but I mean I've cooked for friends and stuff like that before. My last roommate, primarily ate like a lot of like frozen foods or things that you'd like heat up. But I would wake up at 3 a.m. and just start cooking like whole ass meals, like meal planning. And I'd make some for her and stuff like that because I mean, she really enjoyed my food. I like to think I'm pretty good at cook. Anyway, that's what it boils down to. So I prefer homemade food because I know I can cook really well. So
Cool. Uh, on the other side, you're hungry and the only place to eat is a gas station. What are you getting?
thank you for asking. I thought really hard about this. So I'm specifically using 7-Eleven as an example for this because I still think about these 7-Eleven boneless wings. I had gone into the 7-Eleven and I don't remember if they carried boneless wings before. No, what it was is the reason I hadn't tried them before is because the 7-Eleven had just opened. I live in like a tiny ass town, so getting a 7-Eleven there, crazy. And so I had gone to the 7-Eleven, and the second I walked in, they were like just making them. And it's just the entire like gas station smelled like these wings, and dude, I was drooling. They smelled so fucking good. And so I was like, how much are these wings? How long until they finish? And do you think they're actually good? Like, be real with me, be straight with me. What
Yeah.
do you think? And she was like, well, I'm making the buffalo ones right now, and they're spicy, but I think they're really good. I really like them. And I was like, I'll take some as soon as they're done. I'll sit here and wait for them because I wasn't in a rush. I think I was just literally coming to gas up, and I smelled those, and I was like, I need them. They were so fucking good. They did not last till the next red light when I pulled out of that 7-Eleven. They were so
Nice.
good. So now, and the second I saw gas station food, I was like, 7-Eleven boneless wings.
So you go to the mall. What do you make a beeline for?
Hot Topic or Spencer's every time without fail.
There you
I
go.
actually we just went to the mall recently, and that's exactly what we did. We went to Hot Topic, Spencer's, Barnes and Noble. If there's like a crystal shop, sometimes we'll go in there. But for the most part, bookstore, Spencer's, Hot Topic. That's
Hmm.
it.
Nice. Uh, what's your favorite thing that you've ever made?
Favorite thing that I've ever made. I would say I have a lot of art pieces that I'm super fond of. But another thing, I make candy,
Mm-hmm.
like rape jewelry, and I have it right here. And even though you can't see it, I'm gonna fish it out and I'm gonna play with it. So one of the biggest pieces I've ever made is this really large cuff, and it was the very first cuff I ever made. I've made a few since then, but this one holds a special place in my heart because the colors are pretty. They match my model, and I think I did really well. It's essentially just like a 3D like X cuff, and it took me like I want to say like 2 or 3 hours to make. I believe the ones that I've made since then I've made faster, but like this is the one I was making while I was learning how to make them. And I would definitely say this is like one of my favorite pieces of jewelry. I don't wear it a whole lot because it's big and bulky and it gets in the way,
Mm-hmm.
but I absolutely love it. I like making candy. I like making a lot of like fun little extravagant pieces of jewelry, even if 9 times out of 10, like I barely ever wear them. But I've got them laying about everywhere. I've got a bead collection that would put most people to shame.
I've occasionally run into bead stores, dedicated stores for beads, and I always wondered how do those stores keep afloat? Are people just buying beads in bulk? I don't.
Well, I'm keeping Amazon afloat, that's for sure. Because I think part of the reason is how I got into making the bigger candy pieces. Because before I just used to make like necklaces and like little like singlet bracelets and things like that. Um, but I think what really got me into making the bigger pieces is because I'd run out of one color for my beads, so I just buy another bead kit. And now I have such a large collection. It's gotten to the point that I have like hundreds of charms. I have like thousands of beads in different sizes. Like I've got all the way up to the tiny ones that make the really fine, like pretty jewelry, all the way up to like the big bulky pieces for candy and things. And it's so big. I have like a giant like white toy box is essentially what it is. It's like a wooden toy box. It is filled to the brim with just boxes and boxes of beads.
Oh. Uh, where is the furthest you ever traveled?
So, up until a couple years ago, it had actually the furthest I'd been. So I live in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and my family's from Georgia. We used to go to Georgia every year for a family reunion. We haven't done it in a long time, essentially since COVID hit. They kind of just they didn't do it that year because of COVID, and then of course you leave it one year, you never end up doing it again.
Yeah.
But so the furthest I traveled was literally Georgia for the longest time. I was supposed to go to Greece and Italy when I was in high school. COVID hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't able to go. 2 days before we were supposed to fly out, actually, the president closed the borders.
Wow.
And yeah, it was super disappointing. But my family all went to Tennessee. I want to say it was last Christmas. So that's the furthest I've traveled. We had a cabin up in the mountains,
Wow.
and it was a fun trip. First of all, first time I've seen snow. Second of all, I want it to be one of the last times I see snow. And third of all, I'm rethinking how much I like the cold
Hmm.
because negative 15 degrees up in the mountains with a cabins that heat broke our very first night there when we were
Oof.
there for a week.
Oof.
Let me tell you, my family, first of all, I don't know what my grandma was thinking. I love her to death, but there are certain members of my family that cannot be in a room with each other for longer than like a Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna throw us all in a cabin, and then the heat went out in the cabin. Dude, everybody was at each other's throats.
I can tell you right now that I live in New Hampshire, and the cold does things to people.
I yeah, literally, that's what the heat does like to people in Florida. Because I mean, most summers now they're like anywhere from 103 to 105,
Hmm.
like on like an average at this point. And I feel like every year it gets hotter. But then every year, with the fact that it gets hotter during the summer, it gets colder during the winter, and it starts getting colder earlier. Like it's starting to get chilly for Florida. I mean, I'm sure, like 60 degrees doesn't seem cold to you, but for Florida, it's fucking cold.
Sit.
So it's like I'm going from Floridian winters being like 50 degrees, sometimes 30 degrees at like the lowest, and that's at like its coldest points, going to like negative 15. Girl. I was not a happy camper. I was wearing like 5 layers of clothes and I was still freezing.
Yeah, 60 degrees in New Hampshire is shorts weather. Uh,
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It hit 60 degrees here. I'm putting on a hoodie, sweatpants.
oh boy, you find $20 in the street. What do you buy with it?
That is a good question. $20 cash Rooney. To be honest, probably alcohol for my drinking game nights
Hmm.
and or growing my constantly growing tea supply. I and it's funny because I drink coffee more than I drink tea. but I have like 12 different kinds of tea that I'll occasionally drink. The one I drink the most is Earl Grey. I will say I am a whore for Earl Grey.
Hmm.
Absolutely love it. I usually drink at least a cup or two a day. But I have so many different kinds of tea, including tea that are like I drink it during stream sometimes that are
Hmm.
like cold brew teas. Like you just put them in cold water and you got yourself like a cold brew tea. So I a lot of times during
Oh,
stream I'll have like tea bags sitting next to my water cups to throw in there.
you were echoing for a second there. Uh,
Oh shit, that
oh
was
no,
weird.
it's
Yeah, I think I heard it briefly. That was
oh yeah,
weird.
you're fine now though.
Okay.
Which is your favorite holiday and why?
So I would say my favorite holiday, hmm, Halloween. And it's interesting because I feel like the past couple Halloweens I haven't really done a whole lot. I mean this Halloween I did. I went to a party which was fun. I was dressed up as Deadpool. It
Mm-hmm.
was a super fun time. It was just with a couple of close friends. Halloween's always been my favorite holiday though. And I think honestly as a kid
Oh,
it stemmed from the fact I grew up in a religious like conservative family. Um oh, can you hear me?
yes,
Okay, I think my internet's being a little weird. It
I think
does
it might
this
be.
on occasion in the middle of the evening. But oh, I'm so sorry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so I grew up in a super like religious conservative family,
Mm-hmm.
and I think one of the things was is when I started leaning more into like being alternative. It was very much rejected by literally like every aspect of my family. If I wore too much black, I'd be made to go change.
Mm-hmm.
My family members were constantly gifting me like colorful clothing and things like that. And despite having like a scene OC, I myself am trad goth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wasn't really able to fully explore that until I was an adult. But Halloween was one of those times where I could dress how I wanted to dress, and it was okay because it was just a Halloween costume. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it was like it allowed me to express myself more in ways that I couldn't do, the other 364 days of the year.
of course.
And I feel like because of that, Halloween's always ended up holding a special place in my heart, and I love Halloween every time it comes around. Plus, that's when a lot of horror movies are showing. You got the cool decorations that are like supposed to be Halloween decorations, but usually end up like decor for me all year round.
So, do you have any superstitions?
So, I would, in most cases, I would say I'm incredibly superstitious. But now that I have met people who are very much way more superstitious than I am, I don't think I'm quite that bad. Um, but I definitely there's two things that I'm very very superstitious about, and I think part of the reason why is because these things have happened and bad luck has happened after them. And I'm sure one could argue whether it's coincidence or if these things actually, do somehow link to it. I think it's just because of things that have happened. I do get superstitious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking mirrors, and walking under ladders. Those are two like very, very weird things for me. My grandma tried to instill in my head, like as a child, that you can't rock a rocking chair if there's nobody in it. That one never really ended up like sticking with me. But the walking under ladders and the breaking mirrors, I freak out if somebody breaks a mirror around me. But I would say that's probably like the limit of my superstitions.
I mean, in fairness, I don't think that either one of those are a good idea on its own. I mean, nobody wants to
Yeah.
break a mirror and get glass everywhere, and walking under a mirror, especially if someone's on the mirror and carrying things, I think is a
You mean
generally
the
bad
the
idea.
ladder?
Yeah, but oh boy, what's the latest you ever stayed at a party?
um God, I think there was one. Honestly, if I'm staying late at a party, I'm usually so drunk that I don't remember getting home.
Oh dear.
In all fairness, like if I'm gonna be out until like the middle of the day the next day, I'm probably too intoxicated to remember anything. I think the latest I have stayed at a party was till about 4 or 5 a.m.
Hmm.
And that's a big on it. I think it was definitely super early the next morning. But I think it was around 4 or 5 a.m. when I ended up finally coming home. And I believe it was a sapphic party that I went to. And I definitely, if it's the sapphic party I'm thinking about, yeah, no, I could not remember like 75% of the night when I woke up the next day.
No, wow.
I'm the kind of person I don't party often, so when I party hard.
There you go. Have you ever seen the comedian John Mulaney?
Oh my god, yes.
I
Why
love
are
his
you doing this? Because we hate you.
I love his blackout stories because he
Oh,
used to be an
absolutely.
alcoholic.
I know. So I actually I love his blackout stories because I've had some like mine have never ended quite as crazy,
Mm.
but anytime he talks about them, I'm like, yeah, that is how I act when I am that drunk. Like I think one of the last times it was one of the only times I've ever gotten blackout drunk, and it was at that party I was telling you about.
Hmm.
I had apparently like I had just left like a super toxic, like almost 2 year long relationship, and I ended up apparently this had to come from several different different people's accounts who were not quite as wasted as I was. Because you know you're partying hard when you get wasted during pre-gaming, like you're already shit faced blackout drunk before you even get to the party. um I had to pull this from several accounts, plus the fact that I had a bunch of people on my Instagram, like friend requests and requests I had sent, that did not remember these people. I had made out with about 15 different people at that party,
Wow.
strangers that I had never met before. Like,
Oh man.
it's when, like I said, when I get blackout drunk, I get crazy.
So, do you ever? I have a feeling I know the answer to this question. Do you ever get lost while going home?
No, actually, I
Oh,
don't.
really?
So, why would you think I did?
uh,
So the reason why is because, like I said, I live in a really small town.
yeah.
It's the kind of town that I mean, it's I've grown up in it my entire life too, which helps. I could probably drive home with my eyes closed from just about anywhere in town.
Wow.
Like we've probably got a population of like 5,000 people. Like I'm talking tiny.
Do you ever? Do you collect anything?
Yes, I do. So I actually have several little collections going. One of the things I collect are like little fidget toys. Because I constantly have to be doing something with my hands. I don't know 100% why. It's honestly it's probably I have ADHD, so autism and ADHD. So I'm sure that's like a good 90% of that. But I always have to be moving in some way, and it's usually I have to be doing something with my hands. So I make sure to constantly have things like even now I've been fiddling with like six different fidget toys while we've been talking. I also, like I said, the bead collection's insane.
Hmm.
Um, I would say I collect figures, but honestly, compared to collections I've seen, I don't know if I should call myself a collector yet. My collection is not very extensive. I've got like maybe seven or eight. Um, buttons though, buttons and stickers. They're two things I collect very much, and I think it's because I go to cons a lot and stuff like that. So usually like buttons and stickers, those are like the cheaper things. That way you can get more of them. You know, one side of my PC is completely covered with stickers I've gotten from conventions. The buttons I've had to start collecting in like a little container, and I mean buttons I've collected for years. I don't know why I liked buttons so much as a kid, but I mean it could be something like I'm like walking down the street and some random person hands me like a pin advertising their church. I'm keeping that pin. Even, you know, even if I'm not like religious or anything like that, like I would keep things that like didn't even interest me, but because they were buttons, I'd collect them. I have like a giant jar that's just full of them. But of course, like the anime ones and the things that are centered around things I really like, I keep them separate. I used to have an eat a bag that I'd bring to cons that used to be decorated. The bag got ruined though, so now I just have a bunch of piles of pins again, and I got to get another bag to stick them all in.
And finally, what smell reminds you of home?
So banana pudding, actually. And funny enough, like, and just, I mean, bananas in general, but like especially like sweet smelling like banana scents. And it's never anything my mom made growing up, but I spent a lot of my childhood. I'd visit my granny a lot. And one of the things she always did was every Sunday she would have a family dinner with all of us. And I mean, she hasn't done it in years now. We have the occasional dinners. But it used to be an every Sunday thing for years when I was growing up. And every Sunday, with part of that family dinner, she'd make this banana pudding. So now, anytime I smell bananas, especially like a really sweet banana scent, it immediately like brings me back to like the nostalgia of my childhood. Of like
Nice.
helping my granny like make her banana pudding and then eating the banana pudding. So it's like anytime I smell that, I think of my granny and I think of my childhood.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions I have for now. If you're watching from the audience, first of all, thank you for joining us. You can find links to Cove's Twitter/X, whatever it's called, and Twitch in the description to this video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been your host, Jack Jinseki, and joining me today was Cove.
Bye.
Good night. Goodbye, everyone.